here's the thing. I'm not a messy person. Actually, I need my space to feel clean and organized for me to function. However, that does not mean that I have my things together. In fact, it usually leads to me hiding things when I don't have time to properly put them away. You know, that I'll deal with this later type of cleaning. But that's exactly how the cycle starts. Because if everything looks organized, it must mean that I have room for more, right? Wrong. I know that I'm not the only one like this, someone who sees potential in absolutely everything. I think a lot of crafty people will relate to this. Oftentimes, throwing something away feels wasteful. Like, what if I need this very tiny scrap of fabric someday? Which in my defense has happened. On the other hand, whilst I'm no longer a huge shopper, it wasn't always like that. So now that I'm in my mid-20s, I've ended up with what feels like an overwhelming amount of stuff. Which I'll completely agree with you, that's completely relative. This just feels like a lot for my space. I'm uncomfortable. On my makeover video, some people commented, "You don't have a lot of stuff," which is a very valid observation. Quantity of stuff is very relative to your storage capacity. Bigger houses can store bigger amounts of stuff. But on the other hand, I will admit to you that I do overwhelm easily. And it's not something that I'm very proud of. In fact, anyone who knows me personally knows that I deal very poorly with disorder. I started sewing about 3 years ago, and ever since I've been collecting and storing fabric just wherever I could. There was no system, just vibes. And now we're here. But for once, I don't want to just tidy up and move on. I have been watching a ton of decluttering videos for this, and I've made a list of tips or small habits that I want to start building. No rules, no punishments, just small things that could actually help me stay organized. This is not about being perfect. It's about reclaiming my space and making it feel calm again. Let's do it. Tip number 1, write down your project on the fabric. Every time you buy a project with a specific project in mind, write it down immediately. You have no idea how many times I bought a fabric, had a great idea for it, stored it away, and then poof, my idea vanishes into the ether. Sometimes it comes back, but sometimes it doesn't. So help yourself out, write it down. You can do it right on the tag, on your notes app, on a sticker note that you're going to slap onto the fabric, leave it inside. It really does not matter how. I personally like to write when I purchased this and what I plan to make. And maybe, just maybe, you'll end up making exactly that, or maybe you'll end up making something completely different. Who knows? But at least it's there, documented, which means that it's going to be a little bit more on top of your mind. This one is a habit that I'm looking to implement in my routine. And what I mean by this is I don't want you to go through all of your stash and stick post-it notes and write down all of the ideas at once. Because if you're like me and you have to think of an idea, well, it's not going to happen. What I'm saying is each time you come back home with the fabric, take the time to write down your thoughts and your ideas and what inspires you at that particular moment. Because most likely you will forget. I don't have the best memory. That's all I'm gonna say. I've been thinking for a while about what sort of words do I want to capture in that post-it note. And for me, there's no definitive answer. It could be perhaps an abstract idea such as summer lacy set, or something extremely specific such as this particular piece from the I don't know what brand collection fall winter 2016. Or it could be just the mood or the vibe that you're visualizing, and that could match your fabric. Tip number 2, Keep a photographic inventory. I kind of gave this one away earlier, but once I store something away, I completely forget about it. It really is out of sight, out of mind for me. So now I take pictures of absolutely everything. Quick picture, no perfection needed. Then I make a folder on my phone called Fabrics, and that's where every photo goes, plus any screenshots of patterns or inspiration pictures to match the fabric. That way, when I'm planning my next video, all I have to do is scroll through and see what I have in store. I usually view this rectangle as my enemy, but today it's gonna be my friend. We agreed on a ceasefire. We have both accepted the terms and services of said ceasefire. It's gonna be my memory, because mine's pretty bad. And on my side, I have agreed to charge it before the battery runs out. And I would say that's a fair trade, which is, it's red right now, so maybe I should charge it. It's really funny that I'm proving my point. I have a tendency to only use the fabrics that are on surface level because those are the ones that I see and whose existence I recall, but no more. Because today I'm going to take a picture of every fabric that I own. Oh, the journeys that I embark on. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I honestly think that this is going to make me so much more often and make more things that I really like. I'll keep you updated. Which I'm also saving inspo pictures. And I just learned this, but you can change the order of the pictures in your albums. Sounds like something that you probably can do, but I just learned this. And if you don't know, I'll show you. You just have to press on the picture and then move it, which is pretty fun. Which I don't know if every phone can do this, but most likely, yeah. Technology. This one's going to be a coat. I feel like some of you might wonder why I'm keeping two types of inventory, so the sticky notes and the photographs. And the best way I can answer that is that these two inventories are there for two different reasons. So the pictures is more as a sort of reminder that these fabrics exist. This is going to depend on how much storage you have and how you store your fabrics. But for me, my fabrics are usually piled up. Unless I really dig and go through the fabric, I don't really know what I have. So that's why I'm keeping the pictures. On the other hand, the sticky notes is a small habit that I want to start implementing. And it's more of a habit of, oh, I just purchased this fabric, and instead of just dumping it, I'm going to take the time to write down what I want to make with that. And the best of words, you wouldn't be doing this all at once like I'm doing now. It's more of a quick picture to remember which fabric and sticker note to remember what I plan to make with it. But it could definitely be just you taking a picture and then going on Pinterest, finding and saving the inspiration right next to your fabric. Although I find that that might be more effort. Now I'm confused. Is that more or less effort? Which the whole point is to make life more convenient. So I feel like it's a fair question. Tip number 3, create a separating system. I know this one sounds obvious, but hear me out. You probably can't keep all of your fabrics in one place. I know I can't. I actually have 4 mini storage places around the house. So I started naming them. One could be for cottons and linens, the other one could be for curtains, another one for patchwork, and so. This sounds a bit unnecessary and over the top, but it helps so much. So now when I need something, I know exactly what area to check. What is a good or the perfect separating system? I feel like this is the $1 million question. Well, I don't have an answer, and I also think that there isn't really a definitive answer that fits just about everyone. But what I am going to talk about is about how I created mine and the reasoning behind my decisions. So first of all, I have decided that I was going to keep all of my lightweight fabrics and medium-sized scraps in here for easy access. I also decided to keep all of my heavy fabrics in these 3 bags, which also means that all of my other storage spaces are now empty. And this might be very confusing, and you might be like, wait, where did your fabric go? Well, it wasn't really fabric, it was scraps. Because for the past 3 years, I have developed the worst of habits, which is just dumping all of my scraps everywhere. Just everywhere. It was everywhere. Because on the one side, I really did not want to feel wasteful, but on the other side, I was being a little bit lazy. So I decided to add a new principle into my system. The scrap bag must follow me at all times. Which basically means that now there's a designated scrap bag, and it's just going to have to stay in close proximity when I'm sewing. So that's my new system. But in more specific terms, what I would like to suggest to you is try to identify your storage problems. Is it the lack of space? Is it your system? Is it the fact that you're lazy and you don't want to put your scraps in the designated scrap bag, and so your scraps are absolutely everywhere? You know? Because each one of these problems has a different solution. At some point, I just thought that I needed a bigger house. And that's definitely not the case, because I have now freed 2 whole storage spaces. So that was not the problem. Oh, and I didn't mention this, but these are going to go under my bed. So it's easy to get them in and out. Tip number 4, revisit your inventory. Now, I'm not saying do this every week, but every so often you need to go through everything that you have and be honest with yourself. Are you actually going to use it? I used to keep very weird shapes of fabrics because I thought, well, I could patchwork this later. But a lot of the times I just realized that that wasn't my initial plan and that I really didn't need and didn't want to make that thing. In reality, the bottom line is I didn't want to feel wasteful. And that's completely okay. That's completely valid. I know a lot of us struggle with the idea of being wasteful. I know I do. But sometimes being realistic about what's worth keeping is actually being nicer and kinder to yourself and to your space. And sometimes you need to think a bit about yourself. I know I personally feel extremely guilty when I'm about to throw something away. And this is how I help myself into kind of evading the guilt and the shame. The thing that I'm about to throw is already here on planet Earth, whether I like it or not. As someone who thrifts almost everything that she owns, sometimes it's a good idea to think that somebody else just like you might want that thing that you're holding on to. And sometimes it doesn't even mean throwing things away. Sometimes just redirecting them. It's just a matter of saying, okay, this is not patchwork material anymore. This is stuffing now. It's kind of funny, now that I'm behind the camera creating content, I've realized that there's a certain responsibility that comes with it. I often wonder what to show and how much of the bad parts I should share. The girl you're seeing on screen was actually going through a really difficult time. Decluttering can be fun for some people, but I'm definitely not one of them. It's stressful, it's full of tiny decisions, and as someone who already struggles with decision fatigue, it was overwhelming. So if you're like me and find decluttering to be a daunting task, here are my tips. My number 1 tip is to distract yourself. Put on your favorite show or podcast, Sure, you'll probably move a bit slower and maybe you won't make the most perfect decisions, but that's completely fine. Decluttering is not a one-time event. Unfortunately, it's something that we have to do again and again and again throughout our lives. So whatever bad choices you make now, you will always have a chance to rectify later. My number 2 tip is check your timing. Ask yourself, do you actually have the time or mental space to do this right now? Decluttering takes energy and often it gets messier before it gets better. Because if you don't get started. Or you can do tip number 3, which is work by zones. Pick a very small area, set a 20-minute timer, and focus only on that one zone. When the timer's up, you can decide whether to move on or to call it a day. Either way, you've kept your promise, and that's a win. So, I'm done sorting things out in my 4 boxes. However, my unsure category is not really unsure about whether I want to keep it or throw it away. I'm more so unsure about where to keep each thing. Now, it is very important to revisit the whole inventory, and I'm in dire need to do an extensive decluttering session, but sometimes you might find yourself completely overwhelmed, which is where I find myself right now. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily organize whatever I have going on in this room. And once I'm done doing that, I might see if I have more energy to do another bag. The bottom line is this is progress. And if you feel overwhelmed, take a breather, organize what you have going on if you want to feel better, and then maybe wait a couple days and then keep going. And tip number 5, live with your storage. Once you reorganize everything, just live with it. Experience it. See what feels right and what doesn't. Because sometimes what makes perfect sense in theory just does not work out in practice. I once stored all of my biggest fabrics in the hardest to reach corner of my house because logically, big space, big fabric. But then I started completely avoiding those fabrics because it was so annoying to get them out. And I realized that I was sewing less of what I actually wanted to make just because it was hard to access. And this is what I mean by hard to reach spaces. If you're like me and you need to get on a chair, then most likely you're not going to reach for this fabric as often as you would like. As to me, I'm going to try not to utilize this storage space for fabrics. And you heard me right. I said try to, because everything depends on availability. The bottom line here is your system should fit the way you create and not the other way around. By storing things where it made more sense, I was actually fighting against my own system, if it was a system, and that on the long run made me feel less excited about sewing. And that is definitely not the point. Whether it's sewing, knitting, flipping furniture, your systems should never make you less excited about your craft. So don't be afraid to experiment, rearrange things as you go until it feels right. Overall, I'm very happy with how my storage looks now. It's definitely not perfection, but I feel I've made a lot of progress. Also ended up donating some things, especially clothes that I was holding on to for patchworking purposes. I'm slowly but surely walking away from my I see potential in everything mindset, because whilst repurposing and giving a second chance is an amazing trait to have, I will now take the time to ask myself, yes, I could, but do I want to? And if you struggle with the same mindset, I really encourage you to do the same. I'm also very happy to have identified my main storage issue, which was scrap management, and I'm very hopeful that my new system will help me keep my storage neater and consequently will help me make more of what I really want to make. Thank you for watching. See ya! I just wanted to hop on real quick to tell you that if you're going through a decluttering session right now, you got this. I know they're very daunting, and in fact, I did not have fun. I did not have fun this week, but it is a very necessary thing to go through sometimes, especially when you're a very hobby-driven person. So you got this.